The transport ship lurched as it touched down on the rust-colored surface of Kepler 442b. Jake Morrison gripped the armrest, watching through the viewport as the settlement came into view. 3 prefab domes, a mining station, and what looked like a trading post. His new property. The deed in his jacket pocket said he owned all of it. 200 acres of alien soil bought fair and square from the Galactic Land Commission. Katie Sullivan, the ship's pilot, glanced back at him. "You sure about this?" "Colony records show the previous owner left in a hurry." Jake nodded. Price was right. Besides, I've dealt with worse back on Mars. The airlock hissed open. The settlement's air tasted recycled, metallic. Jake stepped onto the landing platform, his boots crunching on the grated metal. Everything looked abandoned. No lights in the windows. No workers at the mining equipment. The silence pressed against his eardrums. He walked toward the main dome, Katie following close behind. The door stood open. Inside, overturned furniture scattered across the floor. A table lay on its side, chairs broken. But what stopped Jake cold was the blood. Dark stains covered the floor in long streaks, as if someone had been dragged. The pattern led toward the back rooms, fresh enough that the edges hadn't fully dried in the thin atmosphere. "Jake, we should go," Katie whispered. He pulled out his scanner. Not human blood. Chemical composition is off. The device beeped rapidly. 3 different species. None of them registered in the database. A sound echoed from the mining station outside. Metal scraping against metal, Jake moved to the window. Something massive shifted in the shadows between the buildings. Too large to be human. Its silhouette revealed too many limbs. Katie grabbed his arm. A previous owner. What was his name? Jake checked the deed. Frank Peterson. Human. From Earth Colony Delta? 7. Then whose blood is that? The scanner beeped again, this time louder. Jake looked at the screen and his stomach dropped. It's detecting active biosignatures. Multiple. All around us. The lights in the dome flickered, then died completely. In the darkness, Jake heard breathing. Not human breathing. Something that sounded wet, ragged, coming from every direction at once. Katie activated her wrist light. The beam cut through the black, illuminating the walls. They weren't walls anymore. They were covered in something organic. Pulsing! Alive. The deed said Frank Peterson sold this place, Jake said, backing toward the exit, but he never made it off-world. Check the colonial records again. Katie's fingers flew over her tablet. Her face went pale. There is no record. The sale was processed, but there's no departure log for Peterson. No communication after he filed the deed transfer. The breathing grew louder. Something dropped from the ceiling. Jake's light caught it for just a second. Translucent skin. Multiple eyes. Teeth that looked like broken glass. They ran. The airlock seemed a mile away. Behind them, the sounds multiplied. Dozens of creatures, maybe hundreds, flooding from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Jake hit the door controls. Nothing happened. Katie slammed her fist against the manual override. The locks disengaged with a hiss that seemed to take forever. They burst through into the landing area. The transport ship sat 50 meters away. But between them and safety, shapes emerged from the mining station. Large ones, small ones. All of them moving with purpose. All of them moving toward Jake and Katie. The deed in Jake's pocket suddenly felt like a death warrant. This place wasn't sold. It was bait, and they had just taken it. The largest creature stepped into the light. Its body was covered in the same dark stains that marked the dome floor. When it opened its mouth, Jake saw rows of human teeth mixed with alien fangs. It wore Frank Peterson's identification tag around what might have been a neck. Katie pulled her plasma pistol. Run or fight? Jake looked at the ship, then at the dozens of creatures blocking their path. The deed said this land was his. But the blood on the floor told a different story. This place already had owners, and they didn't sell. We fight our way through, Jake said, drawing his own weapon. Then we burn this whole settlement from orbit. The creatures charged. The war for Kepler. 442b had just begun. Jake fired first. The plasma bolt struck the nearest creature's center mass, burning through its translucent hide. It screamed, a sound that made his teeth ache but kept coming. Katie's shots took down 2 more, but for every one that fell, 3 more emerged from the buildings. "They're hurting us," Katie shouted over the weapon's fire. "Away from the ship." Jake noticed it too. The creatures weren't attacking head-on. They were pushing them toward the mining station. toward the darkness between the structures. "Then we go through them," Jake said. He switched his weapon to wide dispersal and fired into the packed group ahead. The plasma spread like a fan, catching 5 creatures at once. Their bodies ignited, the flames spreading from one to another. The smell was horrific, like burning plastic mixed with rotting meat. They ran through the gap. Katie covered their backs, firing short, controlled bursts. Something grabbed Jake's leg. He looked down to see a smaller creature, no bigger than a dog, its jaws locked onto his boot. He kicked hard, dislodging it, then shot at point blank. 20 meters to the ship. Then 15. A massive shape dropped from the transport's hull. It landed between them and the boarding ramp. This one was different. Larger than the others. Its body covered in what looked like armor plating. The identification tags hanging from it weren't just Peterson's. There were dozens. Names Jake couldn't read in the dim light. "How many people did it kill?" Katie breathed. The creature spoke. The sound came out garbled, but Jake recognized the words. Human words. This. World. Ours. You. It had learned to speak by eating its victims. Jake's mind raced. The creature was blocking the only entrance to the ship. Going around meant exposing themselves to the horde behind them. Fighting it head-on would drain their weapons before they could penetrate that armor. "The mining equipment," Jake said. "The plasma cutters." Katie understood immediately. "Cover me." She sprinted toward the mining station while Jake lay down, suppressing fire. The armored creature lunged at him. He rolled, feeling the wind from its strike. Where he had been standing, the metal platform now had a crater. Katie reached the equipment shed. She emerged holding an industrial plasma cutter, the kind used to slice through asteroids. She fired it up, the tool humming with barely contained energy. "Hey, ugly," she called out. The creature turned. Katie swung the cutter in a wide arc. The beam hit the creature's side, cutting through the armor like paper. It howled, staggering. Jake added his fire to the assault, targeting the wound Katie had opened. The creature collapsed, its body still twitching. They didn't wait to see if it would get back up. Jake and Katie sprinted up the boarding ramp. The ship's systems powered on immediately. Through the viewport, Jake saw the horde converging on their position. Hundreds of creatures, all different sizes and shapes, flooding across the settlement. "Seal the ramp and get us airborne," Jake ordered. Katie's hands flew across the controls. The ship lifted, sluggish at first, then gaining speed. Several creatures leaped onto the hull. Jake heard them scratching, trying to find a way in. "Taking us up to orbital altitude," Katie said. "What's the play?" Jake pulled out his communicator. "This is civilian transport Delta 9 to any nearby military vessels. We have a xenobiological threat on Kepler. 442B. Settlement is compromised. Requesting immediate assistance." Static answered him. Then a voice, distorted and cold. "Delta 9, this is Captain Helen Morris of the destroyer Valor.
We've been monitoring your landing.
Please state the nature of the threat. Unknown hostile species, multiple entities. They've killed at least one colonist and are displaying organized behavior. The settlement needs to be quarantined." A pause. "Delta 9, our records show that settlement was legally purchased by you 6 hours ago. Are you certain about these claims?" Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the thin air. "Check your records again. The previous owner, Frank Peterson, never left the planet. His body is down there, or what's left of it." Another pause, longer this time. "Stand by, Delta 9. Katie brought up the external cameras. The creatures that had clung to the hull were falling off now, unable to survive in the vacuum. But below, on the planet's surface, Jake could see the settlement clearly, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The buildings were moving, not just the creatures inside them. The structures themselves were shifting, reconfiguring. The prefab domes were merging together, forming something larger. "Something organic. That's not a settlement," Katie whispered. "That's a nest. The whole thing is alive." Jake's communicator crackled. "Delta 9, we've confirmed your report. Frank Peterson's departure was falsified. We're detecting similar patterns at 4 other recently sold properties in this sector. Whatever this is, it's been going on for months. What are your orders, Captain? Hold position. We're jumping to your coordinates now. Estimated arrival, 12 minutes. Do not approach the planet's surface." Jake watched the settlement below continue to transform. The mining equipment was being absorbed into the organic mass. The trading post collapsed inward, feeding the growing structure. "Captain Morris, whatever these things are, they're not just killing people. They're using our own systems against us. The land sales, the legal documents. They're learning how we work. We're aware, Delta 9. This isn't the first time we've seen this pattern, but it is the first time we've had living witnesses. What do you mean first time? 7 colonies in the past year, all sold legally through the Galactic Land Commission. All buyers disappeared within 48 hours of landing. You're the first ones to make it off the planet alive. Katie pulled up a star chart. Jake, look at this. All 7 colonies. They form a pattern, a direct line toward Earth's outer territories. Jake felt the pieces clicking together. They're not random attacks. This is an invasion route. They're establishing footholds, using our own greed against us. Correct, Delta 9? Captain Morris replied. And according to our intelligence, there are 43 more properties currently in escrow, 43 more traps waiting for buyers. The ship's sensors pinged. Jake checked the display. 3 more vessels were approaching the planet. Not military. Civilian transports. New buyers coming to claim their purchased land. Captain, we have incoming civilians.
Hey, ships!
Broadcasting warning now. But the ships weren't responding. They continued their descent toward the planet. Jake grabbed the communicator. Civilian vessels, this is Delta 9. Do not land. Repeat, do not land. The settlement is hostile. One of the ships responded. A man's voice irritated. Delta 9, we paid good money for our claims. Whatever dispute you have with the sellers isn't our concern. There are no sellers. They're dead. The creatures on that planet killed them and forged the documents. Laughter. Right. And I'm the Emperor of Mars.
Stay off our frequency.
Katie looked at Jake. What do we do? Jake watched the 3 ships descend, watched them land near the transformed settlement, watched as the airlocks opened and people stepped out onto the surface. The organic mass erupted. Tendrils shot out from the central structure, wrapping around the newcomers before they could react. Their screams carried over the open comm channels. Then silence. Captain Morris? Jake said quietly. You need to get here now. 7 minutes out, Delta 9, hold your position. But Jake was already strapping back into the pilot's seat. Katie, take the weapons station. What are you doing? Those people might still be alive. And even if they're not, we can't let that thing grow any larger. If it reaches critical mass before the Valor arrives, it might be able to spread to the other ships. We're a civilian transport. We have 2 plasma pistols and harsh language. Jake brought the ship around, diving back toward the atmosphere. The mining station had plasma cutters. Industrial grade. If we can get close enough, we can use them as bombs. Overload the power cells and drop them into the center of that mass. Katie ran to the cargo bay. This is the stupidest plan I've ever heard. You have a better one? Yeah, wait for the military. And let more people die? No chance. The ship shook as they hit the atmosphere. Jake pushed the engines hard, trading fuel efficiency for speed. The settlement grew larger in the viewport. It had doubled in size since they left. The organic mass pulsed with a sick rhythm, like a heartbeat. Katie returned to the cockpit carrying 3 plasma cutters. I rigged them to overload on your mark. We'll have 30 seconds after I activate them before they go critical. That's tight. That's all we've got. Jake brought the ship in low, skimming just above the surface. The mass sensed them. Tendrils shot upward, reaching for the hull. Jake jinked left, then right, dodging the grasping appendages. Open the cargo bay, he ordered. Katie hit the control. The rear door opened with a hiss. The thin atmosphere screamed past them. Activating cutters now, Katie said. 30 seconds. Jake lined up the approach. The center of the mass had an opening, like a mouth. That was where the newest victims had been dragged. That was where he needed to drop the payload. A tendril struck the ship's side. Alarms blared. Hull integrity at 60%. 20 seconds. Another impact. The ship lurched. Jake fought to keep them steady. 15 seconds. He was directly over the opening now. Release. Katie dumped the cargo. The 3 cutters tumbled through the air, falling into the mouth of the organic mass. Go, 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 Katie shouted. Jake pulled up hard. The ship's engines screamed in protest. They climbed, fighting against gravity and the tendrils still reaching for them. 5 seconds. The explosion lit up the landscape below. The plasma cutters detonated simultaneously, their overloaded power cells releasing the equivalent of a small nuclear blast. The organic mass convulsed. A sound filled the air, a scream that seemed to come from everywhere at once. But it wasn't dying. It was angry. The mass began to collapse inward, then exploded outward. Chunks of organic matter shot into the sky like missiles. Jake swerved, dodging the debris. One piece struck their port engine. The ship spun. "I've lost engine 2, Katie reported. Compensating. They were losing altitude. The ground rushed up to meet them. "Come on," Jake muttered, coaxing the damaged ship higher. "Just a little more." The ship shuddered but responded. They gained height, meter by meter, crawling away from the dying settlement. Jake's communicator came to life. "Delta 9, this is the Valor. We're in position. What the hell did you just do?" Jake looked at the viewport. The military destroyer hung in orbit above them, its weapons already charging. "Bought you some time, Captain. That thing down there is wounded. Now's your chance to finish it." "Copy that, Delta 9. Clear the area." "We're going to orbital bombardment." Jake pushed the damaged ship away from the planet as fast as it would go. Behind them, the Valor opened fire. Kinetic rounds punched through the atmosphere, followed by plasma torpedoes. The settlement vanished in a series of explosions that shook the planet's crust. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left but a crater. Katie slumped in her seat. "We actually survived that." Jake pulled out the deed from his pocket. It still said he owned the property. 200 acres of alien soil. He held it up to the viewport, looking at the smoking crater below. "I want a refund," he said. Captain Morris's voice came through the comm, and this time there was a hint of humor in it. "Delta 9, once we get you aboard for debriefing, I think you'll find the Galactic Land Commission is going to have bigger problems than one refund." "You've just exposed the largest real estate fraud in human history. Those creatures were sophisticated enough to infiltrate our legal systems, forge documents, and set traps across dozens of worlds." "How is that even possible?" Katie asked. "We don't know yet, but we will. Thanks to you two, we now have evidence, recordings, and most importantly, a pattern we can track. Every pending land sale in this sector has been frozen. We're sending teams to investigate the other 6 colonies that went dark." Jake looked at the crater again. Somewhere down there, Frank Peterson's body was mixed with the ash. How many others had died the same way? How many had come seeking a new life, only to become food for something that learned to mimic human bureaucracy? "Captain, there's something else you should know," Jake said. That thing could talk. It spoke human words. It was learning from its victims. A long silence from the Valor. "Then that's concerning. Very concerning. Did it say anything specific?" "It said this world was theirs. It said we should stay. Possessive behavior combined with vocal mimicry and document forgery. We're not dealing with simple predators. These creatures have intelligence. Possibly even culture." Katie pulled up the sensor logs from their first landing. "Look at this. The blood patterns we found. I thought they were drag marks. But if you look at them from above, they form patterns. Symbols." Jake leaned in. She was right. The blood wasn't randomly scattered. It was arranged, deliberately. "Captain, are you seeing this?" Katie transmitted the images. Another pause. Confirmed Delta 9. Those are mathematical equations. Complex ones. They're using blood to calculate something. Jake felt a chill creep down his spine. Calculate what? Trajectory? Orbital mechanics. Delta 9. Those creatures were planning to leave the planet. They were using the blood of their victims to work out how to reach orbit. Katie's hands froze on the controls. They were building a ship. That organic mass wasn't just a nest. It was technology. Biological technology. "Which means there might be more," Jake said. "Other nests on other worlds, all working toward the same goal. Getting into space, reaching our colonies." "We need you aboard immediately," Captain Morris said. "Both of you. You've seen these things up close. You've fought them and survived. That makes you the closest thing we have to experts on this new threat." Jake looked at Katie. She nodded. "Understood, Captain." Bringing her in, the Valor's hangar bay doors opened. Jake guided their damaged transport inside, feeling the magnetic clamps engage as they set down. Through the viewport, he could see crew members rushing to meet them. Medical personnel.
Officers. All of them looked tense.
As the airlock cycled, Jake folded the deed and put it back in his pocket. He had bought 200 acres of alien soil. What he got instead was a front-row seat to humanity's newest war. The airlock opened. A woman in a captain's uniform stood waiting. Helen Morris was shorter than Jake expected, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Walk with me," she said. "Both of you, we have a situation developing." They followed her through the destroyer's corridors. Crew members stopped to stare at them as they passed. Jake realized they weren't just curious. They were afraid. Word had already spread about what happened on Kepler, 442b. Captain Morris led them to the bridge. The main display showed a tactical map of the sector. 7 red dots marked the previous colony deaths, but now there were more yellow dots. Dozens of them. These are all the properties that were sold through the same channels as yours, Morris explained. We've been trying to contact the buyers. 37 of them aren't responding. 4 responded and refused to leave their new property. Said we were trying to steal what they paid for. They're already there, Katie said. Already infected or dead. That's our fear, and it gets worse. Morris zoomed in on one of the yellow dots. This is the colony on Epsilon. 7. Purchased 3 weeks ago by a consortium of investors. Population now at 300. They built an entire town. And according to their last transmission 6 hours ago, people are starting to get sick. Sick how? Jake asked. Fever, hallucinations, aggression. And according to the colony doctor, the blood work shows contamination by an unknown organism. Sound familiar? Jake remembered the creature wearing Frank Peterson's identification tag, the way it had spoken with a voice that wasn't quite human. It's not just using our bodies for food, he said slowly. It's converting them. The infection is how it spreads. Morris nodded grimly. That's our theory. And if we're right, Epsilon, 7 has 300 infected individuals who think they're still human. 300 carriers who could board ships, visit other colonies, and spread this thing across the entire sector. You need to quarantine them, Katie said. Lock down the whole planet. Already done. But here's the problem. Morris pulled up another display. Epsilon has a scheduled transport leaving tomorrow. A luxury liner taking 50 colonists back to Earth's outer territories for a trade conference. The colonists are demanding we let them leave.
They say they feel fine. They say we're violating their rights.
Jake saw where this was going. If that ship leaves, they'll infect everyone at the conference. And from there, it spreads to every world those delegates return to. Exactly. We have 18 hours to figure out how to stop these things. How to detect them. How to cure them. Or we're looking at a pandemic that could devastate human space.
No pressure, Katie muttered.
Morris turned to them. You two spent more time in direct contact with these creatures than anyone else who's lived to talk about it. I need you to tell me everything. Every detail. What they looked like, how they moved, how they attacked. Anything that might help us understand what we're up against. Jake took a deep breath and began describing their experience on Kepler 442b. The way the creatures had coordinated their attack, the different sizes and shapes, the armored one that seemed to lead them, the organic technology that had disguised itself as human buildings. As he talked, Morris's expression grew darker. Intelligence. Organization, biological technology. The ability to forge documents and manipulate our systems. This isn't a random monster. This is a species that's been planning this invasion for a long time. But why? Katie asked. If they're this intelligent, why not just make contact? Why the deception? Because they don't want to coexist, Jake said. They want to replace us. That's why they're learning to speak our language, wear our identification, mimic our behavior. They're not invading, they're assimilating. Morris's communicator beeped. She answered it, listened, then her face went pale. When? How many? She ended the call and looked at Jake and Katie. The colony on Epsilon. 7 just went dark. All communications ceased 3 minutes ago. The last thing we received was a distress call saying the infected had turned violent. The healthy colonists locked themselves in the command center, but something was breaking through the doors. How long until you can get ships there? Jake asked. The nearest battle group is 6 hours out. But we can't wait. If those things take control of colony's communications, they could send false reports. Make it look like everything's fine. The transport would leave tomorrow with 50 infected passengers, and no one would know until it was too late. Jake looked at the tactical display. 6 hours seemed like forever. But there was another option. A desperate one. How long would it take us to get there? He asked. Norris followed his gaze. In your transport? With one engine damaged? 10 hours. Maybe more. What about a military ship? 3 hours. But Delta 9, you're civilians.
You're not trained for this.
We're the only ones who've fought these things and survived. We know how they move, how they think. And we don't have 6 hours to waste. Katie grabbed Jake's arm. Are you serious? We barely made it out alive last time. But if we don't stop this now, 300 people die. Maybe more. Maybe millions if that transport leaves. Captain Morris studied them for a long moment. I can give you a corvette, fast-armed and with a full Marine squad. But I need you to understand what you're volunteering for. If that colony is fully overrun, the safest option is to destroy it from orbit, with everyone inside. I need to know you can make that call if necessary. Jake thought about Frank Peterson, about the 3 crews who had landed after them, about 300 colonists who probably had no idea what was happening to them. If there's no other way, he said. Yes, I can make that call. Morris nodded. Then you leave in 20 minutes. Get to the armory. They'll outfit you with proper weapons and armor. And Jake, don't get yourself killed. We're going to need your testimony when this is over. The Corvette Hammer launched from the Valor with barely enough time for Jake and Katie to strap in. The Marine squad filled the rest of the ship, 20 hardened soldiers led by a woman named Lieutenant Sarah Brooks. She briefed them during the flight. Our intel on Epsilon. 7 is limited. The colony was built in a valley surrounded by mountains. Single access point by ground. 300 colonists spread across 15 buildings. The command center is the largest structure, built into the mountainside for protection. That's where the healthy colonists should be holed up. Should be? Katie asked. We lost contact 40 minutes ago. Could be the creatures destroyed the communications array. Could be something worse. Jake studied the tactical map Brooks projected. What about the infected? Where were they when the distress call came in? Scattered throughout the column. But according to the last report, they were all moving toward the command center, like they were being called. Because they were, Jake said. These things don't act randomly. They coordinated. If they're all moving to one location, it's because they're working together to break through. Brooks's expression hardened. Then, we better hope we arrive before they succeed. The 3-hour flight felt like 3 years. Jake tried to rest, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw the creature wearing Frank Peterson's tags, heard its garbled voice trying to form human words. When they finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Epsilon, 7 filled the viewport. A green and blue world, almost Earth-like. Beautiful. Peaceful, until Jake saw the colony. Even from orbit, it was clear something was wrong. The buildings were dark, no lights, no power signatures. And the command center, built into the mountainside, had a massive hole torn through its front wall. They got inside. Katie whispered. Lieutenant Brooks was already issuing orders. Marines, combat drop in 5 minutes. We're going in hot. Rules of engagement. Anything hostile gets put down immediately. Our primary objective is to locate and extract survivors. Secondary objective is to gather intelligence on the creatures. Understood? A chorus of acknowledgments filled the comm. Jake and Katie were issued combat armor and rifles. Military grade. Far better than the plasma pistols they'd used on Kepler. 442B. Jake hoped it would be enough. The drop pods launched. Jake's stomach lurched as they plummeted toward the surface. Through the small viewport, he watched the colony grow larger. Still no signs of life. No movement. The pod hit the ground hard.
The door blew open, and Jake stumbled out into daylight.
The colony stretched before him, silent and still. Too still. The Marines formed up quickly, weapons ready. Brooks signaled them forward. They moved in pairs, clearing each building methodically. Jake and Katie stayed in the center of the formation, protected but ready. The first building was a residential block. The door hung open. Inside, furniture was overturned, signs of a struggle, but no bodies, no blood. Where is everyone? A Marine whispered. They moved to the next building. Same story. Signs of violence, but no victims. It was like the entire colony had simply vanished. Command center, Brooks ordered. That's where they were heading. That's where we'll find answers. The hole in the command center wall was even larger up close. Something had torn through reinforced concrete like it was paper. The Marines entered first, lights cutting through the darkness inside. What they found made Jake's blood run cold. The colonists were there, all 300 of them, standing perfectly still in the main hall. Their eyes were open but vacant. Their mouths hung slack. And covering every inch of exposed skin was a thin film of the same translucent material Jake had seen on Kepler, 442B. They weren't dead. They were transforming. Fall back, Brooks whispered urgently, slowly. But it was too late. The colonists' heads turned in unison, 300 pairs of eyes focused on the Marines. Then they smiled, all of them, the same smile. Welcome, they said in perfect unison. The same voice Jake had heard on Kepler, 442B. The same garbled attempt at human speech. You, stay. Join. Us. The colonists surged forward. Jake fired. His rifle tore through the nearest converted colonist, but it barely slowed down. The Marines opened up with everything they had, the hallway filled with plasma fire and bullets. Converted colonists fell, but more kept coming. "They're not stopping," Katie shouted over the gunfire. Brooks grabbed Jake's shoulder. "We need to blow this place. Now, before any of them can reach the transport." "There might still be survivors," Jake protested. "Look at them. They're already gone." Jake looked at the converted colonists. Their movements were jerky, uncoordinated.
But their eyes?
Showed intelligence. Awareness. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were attacking. "Set the charges," Brooks ordered. "We have 30 seconds. The Marines worked with practiced efficiency. Plasma charges on every support beam. Enough explosive to bring the entire mountain down on the command center." They retreated toward the entrance. The converted colonists followed, their movements growing more coordinated with each passing second.
Like they were learning adapting.
20 seconds. A child emerged from the crowd of colonists. Couldn't have been more than 10 years old. The translucent film covered half her face, leaving one eye clear and human. That eye looked at Jake. Really looked. And in it he saw terror. A mind still trapped inside a body being taken over. "Help," the girl whispered. Her own voice, not the creature's. "Please." Jake's finger froze on the trigger. 10 seconds, Brooks said. "We need to go. Now." The girl reached toward him. The translucent film spread further across her face even as she moved. Soon there would be nothing left of the child she had been. Katie grabbed Jake's arm. "There's nothing we can do for her. Nothing we can do for any of them." Jake let Katie pull him back. They ran from the command center as the countdown reached 0. The explosion was massive, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The mountain groaned, then collapsed, burying the command center and all 300 converted colonists beneath tons of rock. Jake stood at the edge of the blast zone, watching the dust settle. Somewhere under there, a little girl who had just wanted help was now gone, along with 300 others who had come to this world seeking a better life. "We need to check the landing pads," Brooks said quietly. "Make sure no one escaped before we arrived." They found the transport ship still on the pad, empty. No one had tried to flee. The creatures had wanted to keep everyone here, to finish the conversion, to turn an entire colony into hosts. But why? What was the end game? Jake walked back to the colony's communication center. It was separate from the command center, built into a different part of the mountain. The structure still stood. Inside, the equipment was still functional. He accessed the colony's records. The last few weeks of communications, supply orders, personnel files, and buried deep in the system a file that shouldn't have been there. A video log, recorded by the colony's founder, a man named Eric Huang. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. Jake played it. Huang appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted, scared. "If anyone finds this, you need to know what we discovered. The creatures. They're not from this world. We found ruins.
Old ones.
The creatures were buried there. Dormant. We woke them up when we started mining." The video shook as Huang looked over his shoulder.
"They infected me 3 days ago."
"I can feel it spreading. Taking over. But while I still can, I need you to understand. They're not invading. They were here first. This was their world. All these worlds. Thousands of years ago. They had an empire. Advanced. Powerful. But something happened. Something that made them go dormant. Hide." Wait for what?" Jake asked the recording. As if answering, Huang continued, "Wait for another intelligent species to arrive. To learn from. To copy. To replace. That's what they do. That's what they've always done. They find a species, study them, take their place, and move on to the next. We're just the latest." The video cut to static, then resumed. Huang was barely recognizable now. The translucent film covered most of his body, but his eyes still held a spark of humanity. "The ruins we found. They show a pattern. Every few thousand years, the creatures wake up, take over whatever species they find, then go dormant again. Waiting. Always waiting for the next species to arrive." "How many times?" Jake whispered. "How many species have they wiped out?" The video gave him his answer. Huang held up a tablet showing images from the ruins. Carved into the walls were dozens of different beings. Alien species. Each one different. Each one recorded in gruesome detail as the creatures had learned to mimic them. to become them. 47, Huang said. We counted 47 different species in these carvings. All of them extinct now. All of them replaced by the creatures. And now it's our turn. The video ended. Jake stood in silence, processing what he had just heard. This wasn't just about a few colonies. This was about the survival of humanity itself. The creatures weren't trying to invade human space. They were trying to replace humans entirely, to add us to their collection of extinct species. He copied the video and the images from the ruins onto a data chip. Evidence. Proof that this threat was far larger than anyone had imagined. Brooks, you need to see this, Jake called out. The lieutenant watched the video, her expression growing grimmer with each passing second. This changes everything. If these things have done this before, they know exactly what they're doing. They've perfected it over thousands of years. We need to find those ruins, Katie said. Study them. Learn about the previous species they wiped out. Maybe one of them found a way to fight back. Or maybe they all died, Brooks countered. Maybe that's why the creatures are still here and those 47 species aren't. Jake looked at the ruins images on his tablet. One of the species caught his attention. Tall bipedal, but with forearms and crystalline growths on their heads. Next to their image was a series of symbols. Some kind of writing. Can we translate this? He asked. Brooke shook her head. We'd need xenolinguistic specialists. Months of work, maybe years. But Jake noticed something. The symbols weren't random. They formed patterns. Mathematical patterns. The same kind of patterns they'd seen in the blood on Kepler. 442b. They're warnings, he said suddenly. These aren't just records. The previous species were leaving warnings for whoever came next. He pointed to one set of symbols that appeared repeatedly throughout the ruins. This one, it's everywhere. What if it's not describing the creatures? What if it's telling us how to stop them? Katie leaned in, studying the symbols. It's a sequence. Chemical compounds. Molecular structures. They're showing us the creature's biology. Their weakness. Or how to make a weapon, Brooks said. They worked for the next hour, photographing every inch of the ruins' documentation. The more Jake studied the images, the more convinced he became that humanity wasn't the first to fight back. The species before them had tried. Some had even succeeded, at least partially. The forearm species had developed a biological weapon. The symbols showed a compound that disrupted the creature's ability to convert other beings. Not a cure, but a preventative measure. Another species, something that looked like living plants, had discovered the creatures were vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. They'd built devices that could stun the creatures, even kill them if the exposure was long enough. 47 species, Katie said quietly. 47 different attempts to stop these things. Some of them must have worked. Otherwise, the creatures would never have gone dormant. Or they went dormant because they ran out of species to consume, Brooks suggested darkly. Jake refused to accept that. No, look at this. He pointed to the last set of images, the most recent species before humanity. These beings, they're different from the others. Their warning is longer, more detailed, like they had more time to study the creatures. The images showed a species of six-legged beings with multiple eyes. Their cities were vast, their technology advanced, and their warning was explicit. The creatures could be killed, but only by destroying the central neural mass. Each converted being was connected to a hive mind. Cut off the head, and the body would die. So we need to find the source, Jake said. The original organism that's controlling all the others? That's assuming there is one, Brooks said. What if each settlement is its own entity? What if destroying one nest doesn't affect the others? Then we destroy them all. A transmission came through on the emergency frequency. Captain Morris. Hammer, this is Valor. We have a situation. The transport from Epsilon 7 just launched. Automated departure. No crew. But our sensors show life signs aboard. 50 individuals. All converted. Jake's blood ran cold. How did they get on board? They must have boarded before we arrived. Hidden in the cargo hold. Waiting. And now they're heading straight for the trade conference. ETA 6 hours. Intercept them, Brooks said immediately. Destroy the ship. We're moving to do exactly that. But here's the problem. The ship is broadcasting a distress signal. Claiming they're under attack by pirates. They're calling for help. And 3 civilian vessels are responding. If we destroy the transport, we risk hitting the civilians. Jake looked at Katie, then at Brooks. They all knew what had to be done, but destroying a ship full of people, even converted ones, went against every instinct. Captain, you need to warn those civilian ships, Jake said. Tell them the truth. If they try to help, they'll be boarded and infected. We've tried. They're not believing us. They think we're the ones who attacked the transport. Then you need to stop them by force. A long pause. Acknowledged Hammer. But we're too far out. The civilians will reach the transport before we can intercept. Once they make contact, the infection will spread to their ships. And from there, to wherever they were heading. Jake made a decision. Captain, we're closer. We can reach them. Give us the coordinates. Negative, Hammer. Your ship isn't equipped for space combat. And you don't have the authority to fire on civilian vessels. Then give us the authority. Right now. Because if we don't stop this, everything we just learned about these creatures won't matter. They'll spread too far, too fast. Another pause. Jake could imagine Morris weighing the options. Breaking regulations against saving potentially millions of lives. Authority granted, Morris said finally. But Jake, understand what you're doing. Those civilian crews are innocent. If you fire on them, you're committing an act that will haunt you forever. I know, Jake said. But if we don't, everyone they might infect will haunt me more. Brooks was already plotting the intercept course. We can catch them in 40 minutes. But it's going to be tight, and we only have enough missiles to take out 2 ships. If there are 3 civilians responding, we'll have to board and clear at least 1 manually. Then that's what we do, Jake said. The Hammer accelerated, pushing its engines to maximum. Through the viewport, Jake could see the stars stretching into lines. They were moving faster than the Corvette was designed to go. The hull shuddered with the strain. 30 minutes, Brooks reported. The transport is broadcasting video now, showing the crew begging for help. Jake forced himself to watch. The converted colonists were doing a perfect imitation of terrified humans. Crying, pleading. If he didn't know better, he would have believed they were real victims. They're getting better at it, Katie said, learning to fake human emotions. Which makes them more dangerous, Jake replied. If they can fool people into thinking they're human, they can infiltrate anywhere, Brooks pointed to the tactical display. 3 civilian ships confirmed. A cargo hauler, a passenger liner, and a private yacht. They're all converging on the transport. ETA 15 minutes. Can we hail them? Jake asked. Already trying. They're not responding. Or they're ignoring us. Jake tried anyway. Civilian vessels, this is military corvette Hammer. You are approaching a biohazard zone. Do not attempt to render aid to the transport. Stand clear and maintain distance, the cargo hauler responded. Hammer, this is captain of the freighter Distant Star. These people need help. We're not abandoning them just because you say so. Captain, those people are not what they appear to be. They've been infected by a hostile organism. If you board that transport, you will be infected too. That's what someone trying to hijack a ship would say. We're going to help them, and if you try to stop us, I'll report you to every authority in human space. Katie leaned close to Jake. He's not going to listen. None of them are. Then we make them listen. Jake opened fire, not at the civilian ships, but at the space directly in front of them. A warning shot. The plasma bolt lit up the void. Impossible to miss. This is your final warning, Jake broadcast. Turn back now, or we will be forced to open fire. The Distant Star's captain came back on the comm, his voice furious. You're threatening civilian vessels? That's a court-martial offense. Hell, that's piracy. I'm saving your life. You just don't know it yet. But the freighter didn't turn back. Neither did the other 2 ships. They were committed now, whether from stubbornness, bravery, or simple disbelief. Brooks, Jake said quietly. Target their engines. Disable them. Don't destroy. That's still an act of war against civilians. Better that than letting them get infected. Do it. Brooks hesitated only a moment. Then she locked missiles onto the civilian ships. Missiles away. The weapons streaked across space. The civilian crews saw them coming and tried to evade, but they were cargo and passenger vessels, not warships. The missiles struck true, detonating against their engine compartments. All 3 ships went dead in space, their propulsion systems destroyed, but their crews alive. Jake's comm exploded with angry transmissions. Threats. Promises of legal action. Curses. He ignored them all and focused on the transport. Brooks, can you scan for life signs? Scanning now. Confirmed. 50 individuals aboard, all showing the same anomalous biosignatures we detected on Epsilon. 7. They're definitely converted. No survivors? No one still human? Negative. If there were any crew, they're gone now. Jake took a breath. This was it. the moment Captain Morris had warned him about the call he needed to make. Destroy the transport. Brooks launched the final missiles. They struck the transport dead center, tearing through the hull. The ship didn't explode so much as it imploded, the atmosphere venting into space. Through the viewport, Jake could see debris scattering, bodies tumbling in the void. 50 converted colonists, each one potentially carrying the infection to thousands more, now nothing but frozen corpses drifting among the stars. The comm fell silent. Even the angry civilian captains had stopped transmitting, shocked by what they'd just witnessed. Jake felt sick. He had just killed 50 people. 50 beings who had once been human, who had families, dreams, lives. The fact that they were converted didn't make it easier. If anything, it made it worse. They had been victims first, then weapons. And now they were dead. Hammer, this is Valor. Morris's voice cut through his thoughts. Confirmed destruction of transport vessel. Confirmed, Captain. Transport destroyed. No survivors. And the civilian vessels? Disabled but intact. Crews are unharmed and very angry. I'll handle them. You three get back here. You've done enough for one day. But Jake wasn't done. Captain, we found something on Epsilon. 7. Evidence that these creatures have done this before, dozens of times. We're not their first target, we're just the latest. He transmitted the data from the ruins. The images of 47 extinct species. The warnings they had left behind. Morris was silent for a long time after receiving the data. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaken. This is... Jake, you understand what you found? This isn't just a threat to a few colonies. This is an extinction-level event. If these creatures have done this 47 times before, they know exactly how to destroy us. But they didn't destroy all of them, Jake countered. Some species survived long enough to leave warnings, to fight back. We can do the same. Or we can end up as number 48 on their list. The Hammer turned back toward the Valor. As they flew, Jake stared at the ruins images on his tablet. 47 species, billions of lives across thousands of years, all wiped out by the same enemy humanity now faced. But humanity had one advantage the others might not have had. Humanity knew the threat existed, knew what was coming, knew the creature's tactics, and could prepare. The question was, would it be enough? When they docked with the Valor, Jake found the ship's corridors filled with activity. Crew members rushing to stations, alerts blaring. Something had changed in the few hours they'd been gone. Captain Morris met them at the airlock. We have a bigger problem than we thought while you were dealing with Epsilon. 11 more colonies went dark, all of them recent purchases through the Galactic Land Commission, all of them showing the same pattern. We're not looking at isolated incidents anymore. This is a coordinated assault. How many people? Katie asked. Roughly 2,000 across all colonies. If they're all converted by now, that's 2,000 potential carriers spreading across human space. Jake felt the weight of that number. 2,000 converted beings, each one capable of infecting dozens more. Exponential growth. Within weeks, it could become millions. We need to stop the land sales, he said. Shut down the Galactic Land Commission. Freeze every pending transaction. Already done. But here's the thing. When we investigated the commission, we found something disturbing. The organization doesn't exist. What do you mean doesn't exist? I mean the Galactic Land Commission is a shell. A fake company set up 6 months ago. All of its employees are fabricated identities. Its office is an empty building. The entire thing is a front. For the creatures, Katie said. They didn't just learn to forge documents. They created an entire fake organization to lure people into their traps. Morris nodded. Which means they've been planning this for a long time. Studying us. Learning our systems. Our laws. Our greed. They knew exactly how to manipulate us into walking into their nests. Jake thought about the ruins, the warnings from previous species. The other species they wiped out. Did any of them leave information about how long the creatures took to conquer them? According to what little we can translate, the longest resistance lasted about 15 years. The shortest was 3 months. What made the difference? The 15-year resistance came from a species that discovered the hive mind early and targeted it aggressively. They treated it like a cancer, cutting it out wherever they found it. But eventually, the creatures adapted, learned to hide better, spread faster, and the species couldn't keep up. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the 11 dark colonies. So we're in a race. Find and destroy the hive minds before they adapt to our countermeasures. Exactly. Which is why I'm assembling a task force. Ships and crews dedicated solely to hunting these things down. And I want you on it. I'm not military. No, but you've fought these things more than anyone else who's still alive.
You understand them.
You think like them. That makes you valuable. Jake looked at Katie. She shrugged. Not like we have anywhere else to be. Our transport is wrecked, we're unemployed, and we're probably going to be charged with destroying civilian ships. The charges are being handled, Morris said. Given the circumstances, the military tribunal has ruled your actions were justified. Extreme, but justified. So we're free to go? Free to go or free to join the task force? Your choice, but I'll be honest. We need you. Humanity needs you. This isn't going to be easy. It's going to be dangerous, bloody, and there's a good chance you won't survive. But if you say yes, you'll have access to resources, weapons, and support to fight these things properly. Jake thought about Frank Peterson, about the little girl on Epsilon 7, about 47 extinct species that had probably thought they could defeat the creatures too. I'm in, he said. Katie sighed. I knew you were going to say that. Fine. I'm in too. Someone needs to keep you from getting killed. Then, welcome to Task Force Hellfire. Your first assignment starts tomorrow. We've detected unusual activity at one of the colonies that went dark. Something's happening there. Something different from the others. I need you to investigate. Jake looked at the tactical display. The colony in question was called Haven's Rest. Population before going dark, 450. It had been silent for 3 days now. No transmissions, no distress calls. Nothing. What kind of unusual activity, he asked. Morris pulled up sensor readings. Energy signatures, massive ones, far beyond what a colony of that size should be generating. Either they're building something, or something's building itself. The organic technology, Katie said, like on Kepler, 442b. The creatures are constructing something. That's our fear, which is why you're going in with full military support. 2 corvettes, 4 drop ships, and 100 Marines. If there's something being built there, we need to know what it is. And if possible, we need to destroy it. Jake studied the sensor readings. The energy patterns were unlike anything he'd seen before. Pulsing. Rhythmic. Almost like a heartbeat. Like something alive. When do we leave? He asked. 6 hours. Get some rest. Gear up. And Jake? Be careful. Whatever's happening on Haven's Rest, it's not like the other colonies. The creatures are changing their tactics. Evolving. And we need to stay one step ahead or we'll end up like those 47 species before us. Jake nodded. 6 hours to rest. 6 hours to prepare for whatever horror awaited them on Haven's Rest. He had a feeling it wouldn't be enough. But then again, when fighting monsters that had perfected extinction over thousands of years, no amount of time would ever be enough. The deed in his pocket felt heavier than ever. He had bought land on Kepler 442b seeking a new life. Instead, he had found the end of the world, and now it was his job to stop it.